Northdowns Publishing presents Dynamic Alignment, the power of finding your purpose, achieving your goals, and living a passion-driven life. By Brad Borkan and Holly Worton. Published in 2024. This audiobook is narrated by Holly Worton. Chapter 1. What is dynamic alignment? Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Lao Tzu. Why is it that some people wake up energized, ready to go, enthralled with all the challenges ahead? They encounter obstacles and enjoy the challenges of overcoming them. They hear the naysayers, critics, both external and internal, and all who say that what they are trying to do is not possible, not good enough, or never will be successful, and they ignore the noise. What is it that these people have in common? Can it be encapsulated into a formula that anyone can use today? These questions and ones like them kept coming back to us. We are authors and friends and have both puzzled over this. For a very long time individually, and more recently collectively, thinking about questions like these and seeking the answers. Holly created over 500 podcast episodes in her Into the Woods with Holly Worton podcast series on topics related to motivation, goals, achievement, and setbacks, during which she interviewed hundreds of people. Brad has written books about great achievers of the past 200 years, such as the early Antarctic explorers like Ernest Shackleton and Roald Amundsen, as well as others like Theodore Roosevelt, who was instrumental in building the Panama Canal, the Wright brothers, and Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, two American women who pioneered the women's rights movement in the 1800s. When we put our collective knowledge and experiences together, what emerged was not just that such a phenomenon exists in some people, but that what they are doing to be energized and raring to go can be encapsulated in an 8-step process. We gave it the name Dynamic Alignment. This book explains our process. Why dynamic alignment is different. Our approach differs from other approaches in self-help books and strategies. It's not about correcting things that you are doing wrong, nor is it about fixing perceived weaknesses in you or your lifestyle. It's not a set of detailed exercises, though we do provide a workbook for those who like that sort of thing. This book can be read from cover to cover in an hour or two. The approach entails a mindset shift that you can blend into everything else that you are doing. You can adopt all of it, or some elements of it, into your own philosophies and style of working and being. You can come back to it time and again. Nothing in our process is rigid. It is not prescriptive. We don't say you have to do it only our way. Our aim is that it be flexible to match you, your personality, how you see the world, and how you like to do things. Dynamic alignment can give you a fresh perspective on yourself and your life journey. The process emphasizes the dynamic, changing, evolving nature of life and work, encouraging you to continually refine and update what you are doing and how you are thinking about what you are doing. It enables you to make small or big pivots as you evolve. A dynamically aligned life becomes an ongoing and thrilling experience, where self-awareness and finding your multi-passionate life work in tandem with your own goals, aspirations, and desires. Together, all of this creates a more invigorating and fulfilling life. The benefits of this become evident as you gain clarity on what thrills you and discover ways to enhance your strengths and attract people, resources, and opportunities into your life to help you along the way. An overview of the process. The first step is a concept called the life factor building blocks, which help you to understand yourself better. The aim of the life factor building blocks is to help you identify, understand, and appreciate all of the talents, values, and experiences, both the good ones and the bad ones, that combined create the unique you, the person you are today. Dynamic alignment is not about changing you. It's about embracing your uniqueness and rejoicing in your value and insights from a life well experienced. It's about appreciating the specialness of your character and how it was shaped by various events, people, and circumstances. Step 2 is to look at the things you love doing, not just now, but throughout your life. You look at your interests, hobbies, and work over the years, and understand how your pastimes and passions have evolved. This results in a list called your unique interest set, which we abbreviate to UIS. Once you've identified your UIS, Step 3 is about looking at all the different ways you can combine elements of your various interests to create different and unique paths and actions. Ones that are uniquely yours, that only you can deliver. Even if you don't pursue any of these, this part of the process opens you up to new perspectives and opportunities. Then, Step 4 involves dabbling, which is a term we adopted for trying out specific combinations of your interests to explore what excites and energizes you, and even has the potential to be monetized. Once you actually start dabbling, you may find that you don't want to pursue certain paths, or you want to pursue different paths. You don't have to monetize all your interests. Some can remain as hobbies, or just remain dormant. It's not about creating a side hustle. It's about creating something that you can uniquely do, that absolutely thrills you because of who you are. Step 5 has to do with goals based on combinations of elements in your UIS. But our approach to goals is different from other styles of goal setting that say you have to set goals and then strive to achieve them. We encourage you to think about your goal language. What types of goals motivate you the most? You may set easy, simple, or detailed goals, stretch goals, or no goals. It's up to you based on your own goal language and what motivates you. As you will see, there are many different goal styles. The key is finding yours. Step 6 involves working towards your goals. In the previous step, you may have set easily attainable milestone goals or harder ones. Whatever style you choose, determining chunk-size intermediary desires that fit your goal language can help you get there. As you undertake this journey, we think something will happen. You will start attracting people, resources, opportunities, connections, and possibilities into your life, all of which can help you achieve your UIS. We call this life magnetism. Step 7 is about spotting when life magnetism is happening and using it to propel you forward. The final part of the dynamic alignment process, Step 8, occurs as your life continues and evolves. There will be opportunities to dynamically refine, update, and align your life factor building blocks, UIS, combinations of elements from your UIS, and goals to make little or big adjustments to propel you further. All these steps combine to make life a more thrilling experiment. Will dynamic alignment help you? Will this 8-step dynamic alignment process help you? That depends on many factors. The approach is designed to be thought-provoking, and the information you glean about yourself and your interests could serve you for the rest of your life. It might encourage you to think differently about your experiences, skills, talents, and desires. It might open your understanding of your uniqueness and how to use that uniqueness to your advantage. It might reveal new ways to monetize some of your skills. We hope it will be entertaining and energizing. Now, before we get started, we'd like to take a few minutes to explain how we discovered dynamic alignment. Chapter 2: How we discovered dynamic alignment. Know what sparks the light in you, then use that light to illuminate the world. Oprah Winfrey. In the conversations that led to this book, what we noticed was that we each had a variety of interests that to the other person seemed almost random. The question we found ourselves asking was, why would you have those interests? As a collection, if you wrote them down on paper, they seemed unconnected. Holly described her interests from a young age as reading, writing, and, no, not arithmetic, the third one was plants. Brad's were Antarctica, wondering why people make the decisions they do, and technology. Neither of us could fully comprehend each other's list because each of our interests were so far removed from the other's point of view. We found that we were curious about the reasons for each person's choice of interests, because to the other person, not only did what they were interested in seem disconnected from the other person's interests, they also seemed almost randomly chosen. What we came to realize was that what a person likes or what their interests are were not judgment issues. A person likes what they like for a variety of reasons. We talked about other things that interested us. As Holly grew older, her list expanded to include Spanish and travel. She had lived for several years in Spain and various Latin American countries. Later in her life, her interests expanded into hiking, camping, and sports like kickboxing and running ultramarathons. Brad's list was different and not as extensive. He became more interested in the achievements of great people doing science, exploring polar regions, and people in small teams who undertook monumental endeavors. His focus was, what is it that drives epic achievement in some people? What we were learning from this was, 1, we needed to stop being judgmental about the other person's interests. Just because they're not our interests doesn't make them wrong, bad, or incongruent. 2, our core interests came about from high school days or even earlier, but changed and evolved over time, influenced by our experiences and other factors. There was something else that was becoming evident. To the other person, the interests seemed a hodgepodge. To the owner of those interests, they seemed totally rational. The explanations we discovered were that we each had factors that drove us and motivated us, internally or externally, even if it was simply to prove to ourselves that we could do it, such as Holly's running in ultramarathons or Brad's living on a ship for a month in the roughest seas in the world in the Southern Ocean. It didn't matter if we were doing this for internal prove-I-can-do-it purposes, for look-at-me purposes, or for research purposes, or some combination of those. What was key was that it was a personal interest. Because it is there. It didn't matter that Holly was a non-sporty person in high school and university. She was able to develop intense sports interests later in life and pursue them. It also didn't matter that Brad hates being cold, is prone to seasickness even on the gentlest bays and rivers, and dislikes being on ships. Each person's drive to do what they wanted to do was strong enough to overcome all other factors. We started wondering, why was that? The answer we came up with was the same what acclaimed British mountaineer George Mallory said in 1922, when he was asked by a journalist, "Why would you want to climb Everest?" His reply was simply, "Because it is there." The answer to why Holly might want to enter an ultramarathon is her own choice. The drive and motivation for doing so are also her own, even if it comes down to because it is there. What was most interesting was discovering the energizing strength of that desire. We started assessing this in relation to our own work. Using Holly's podcast interviews and Brad's analysis of historical people who achieved at extraordinary levels, what we concluded was this. If a person can really tap into what motivates them at a deeply personal and innate level, there is not much that will stop them from striving for it. This was as true for the Victorian engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who designed and built great bridges, tunnels, and railways across Britain in the 1800s, as it was for the Wright brothers in the early 1900s, trying to invent the airplane, or for people living today who aren't striving to work at these epic levels, but instead seeking a meaningful and energized life. The key is the collection of activities. The challenge was, how do you find this? We gave this more thought, again going back to our source material, Holly's podcasts and Brad's books. What we discovered was that while any activity could be motivating in itself, what was truly motivating was the collection of activities that the person was interested in. To put this another way, it wasn't the individual actions that were motivating. It was the combined set of pursuits a person was pursuing that became both self-fulfilling and motivational. Pursuing one activity would not in and of itself be motivational enough to overcome obstacles for most people. It had to do with the combined pursuits. This combination, which resonated uniquely for the person involved, reinforced their achievement-driven behavior. This in turn drove the individual activities to achieve the end goal. For polar explorers like Ernest Shackleton or Roald Amundsen, it was the combination of pursuits and drivers that motivated them. Achieving glory in Antarctica was driven not just by being first, but for the acclaim for their nation and king, for science and discovery, and for personal recognition and fame. There had to be multiple drivers and multiple passions being aroused at the same time. All of those worked together to create within a person an unstoppable drive. What we realized was this: all of these needed to be directly connected to what it is that makes a specific person tick. But there is more. We further realized that there needed to be added synergy from the confluence of activities that the person was engaged in. For example, once Holly became proficient at kickboxing, she started setting goals like achieving the next level of certification, ultimately leading to her earning her black belt. Holly also goes on long, multi-day solo hikes, which are a source of content for the book she's written on trekking, nature, and hiking paths. Since there's an element of risk in being a solo walker, her black belt in kickboxing gives her added confidence in defending herself should the need arise. And all of this gave her added content for her podcast. So, there was a combination of activities that worked together to create one overarching, strong motivational drive. Obstacles such as being too tired to train melted away in the face of this drive. We noticed this in other people's pursuits as well. The combination of interests may have seemed unusual to an outside observer until seen from the doer's perspective. Then we could see the motivating power of a collection of interests. The key was not seeing multiple different interests, such as kickboxing, as one interest, hiking as another interest, and writing books about hikes as a third interest, but seeing them as one single, deeply motivating collection of interests with multiple components. Ultimately, the true energizing power comes when each of these components becomes a deep passion, and the overarching desire becomes connected to the life factors, beliefs, and experiences of that individual. Combinations of interests leads to life magnetism. Back in 2021, Holly had a dream of running an ultramarathon, even though she wasn't sure it was possible for her. She also had another goal, to achieve her black belt in kickboxing. While each goal was motivational, the real power that she was discovering was in combining them. Here's why. The two reinforced one another, creating a synergy. The stamina to train for and run an ultramarathon was helping her with kickboxing, and the fitness training for kickboxing was helping her ultramarathon preparation. What Holly was finding was this: if one goal was motivating, two or more goals, each relevant to her specific interests, were exponentially motivating, especially when the combined pursuits had a mutual benefit for each and all of her activities. Brad was finding similar results. One goal was to write his next book, and while doing so, another goal was to write a magazine article for a leading business publication. A third goal was to appear on a major leadership podcast show, and a fourth goal was to be more active in the Antarctic community, such as attaining a place on the committee of the Friends of the Scott Polar Research Institute. What he was finding was the multiple goals worked together to be more motivating. The book brought recognition, which led to writing magazine articles. Speaking on podcast shows helped him hone the way he described the lessons from the early Antarctic explorers. All of this opened doors to meet people at the Scott Polar Research Institute. It was in discussing these stories that we realized something startling. When pursuing these multiple goals, a magnetism was happening. The more the goals were being pursued, the more doors started opening. It was like a snowball effect. The more these goals, which were unique to Holly or Brad, were pursued, the more resources, support, help, and people were being attracted to make them a reality. For example, having a desire to write an article for a leading business publication is a far cry from actually doing so. Desiring to be interviewed on a top leadership podcast series is a long shot for a relatively unknown person. These are things that need to be worked up to by writing for lesser publications or appearing on unknown or little-known podcast shows, or by having someone in your network who can help you get these types of opportunities. Fortunately, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This common saying from a Chinese proverb is how it works with achieving big goals. Learning to trek on long, strenuous trails or successfully completing ultramarathon races is a journey that starts with gentler and shorter trails and races. The journey to a black belt starts with a white belt and moves through all the colors in which belts are available. Each small activity opened another door, created another contact, or revealed an opportunity that wouldn't have otherwise been spotted or offered if Holly had been approaching it haphazardly. Her goal-focused mindset attracted opportunities, people, and resources that would not have otherwise been available, and had they been offered earlier, they might not have been recognized for what they were. What surprised us in our conversations was that Brad experienced the same phenomenon. Writing blogs and articles on LinkedIn led to writing a few guest blogs on other people's websites and being invited to be interviewed on some podcast shows, some of which may have only had a few people who listened to them. Each endeavor opened another door, which led to another collaboration, a podcast interview, or a writing or speaking opportunity. It might be easy to dismiss this as luck, or simply say, well, of course, this is the law of starting small. But what we each discovered independently was that starting small was only part of it. It was that we were each pursuing a collection of endeavors unique to us, which in itself was energizing to us, and then became even more energizing because opportunities, resources, and people who could help or could open doors were being attracted to our pursuits. And we discovered that it wasn't just us. Other people told us that when they were involved in multiple combined pursuits, they had experienced similar effects. We called this phenomenon life magnetism. All of this came together in a way that enabled us to define the dynamic alignment 8-step process. In the next chapters, we explain the 8 steps and show you how to achieve dynamic alignment in your own life. Step 1 has to do with life factor building blocks.